Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're going to demystify the entire world of business, all thanks to the incredible ideas in Josh Kaufman's The Personal MBA. We're going to cut through all the jargon and the complexity and get right to the very heart of what makes any business, big or small, actually work.
See, Kaufman's whole point is that underneath all the noise and the spreadsheets, business is actually surprisingly simple. He argues that every single company you can think of, from the corner coffee shop to a global giant like Apple, it all boils down to the very same 5 fundamental parts. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory. If you really get this framework, it can unlock so many opportunities, whether you're trying to get a promotion, launch your own side hustle, or just start thinking like a leader. But for decades, we've been told there's really only one path to get this kind of knowledge, the traditional MBA. We all know the promise, right? The MBA is supposed to be the golden ticket. It's sold to us as this guaranteed key to a fantastic career. But when you actually dig into the data, well, the reality tells a very, very different and much more expensive story. Let's just talk about that price tag for a second. $250,000. And that's often financed with debt, the kind that follows you around for years and years, no matter if you land that dream job or not. It's a huge financial gamble for what turns out to be a pretty uncertain reward. And get this, a major study out of Stanford found literally zero connection between having an MBA and how successful you are in the long run. Turns out, it's more about the person than the piece of paper. The people who really succeed have the drive and the skills anyway, not just 3 letters after their name. So if the MBA isn't the secret, what is? Well, it all comes back to these 5 parts. Think of them like links in a chain. First, you have to create something people actually want. Then you have to get their attention. That's marketing. Then you have to convince them to buy. That's sales. Then you actually have to deliver what you promised. And finally, you have to manage the money so you can keep the whole thing going. If any one of these breaks, the whole system just collapses. So let's start with the most important one, value creation. Now, this is absolutely crucial. You're not just making a thing, you're solving a problem for another person. A business that doesn't provide real value is, well, it's basically a hobby, or worse, a scam. The real magic, the real opportunity is when you find a need that isn't being met, maybe even a need people don't know they have. And this story perfectly illustrates the point. A researcher at Procter & Gamble was just watching someone do their laundry and saw this weird little ritual she did. Now, the chemists and the scientists, they just dismissed it. The data proved the powder dissolved just fine. But the big insight was that it wasn't about a physical problem, it was about a psychological need for reassurance. That one little observation created an entire multi-billion-dollar industry. And that right there is why just watching people is so incredibly powerful. People are terrible at telling you what they need in a survey, but their actions, all their little frustrations and weird habits, those reveal the truth. So, okay, you've watched, you found a problem, you have an idea. How do you know if it's actually any good? Right, this is the million-dollar question. You've spotted a problem, you've got a brilliant solution, but will anyone actually pay for it? And let's just be crystal clear about something. Your friends and family saying, oh wow, that's a great idea, I'd totally buy that. That means absolutely nothing. At the end of the day, there's only one signal that truly matters. The real question isn't, do you like my idea? The real question is this problem painful enough that you will pull out your wallet right now to make it go away? Seriously, one single person pre-ordering your product is worth more than 1,000 surveys because it's the only real proof that you're onto something. Okay, so you have something valuable, now you need to connect it to people. And the way to do that is to tap into what makes us all tick as human beings, these 5 core drives. The more of these your product or service appeals to, the more irresistible it's going to be.
And if you want to see a masterclass in this, just look at Apple. I mean, they're not just selling you a phone, are they? They're selling status, connection, creativity, security, and pure emotion. They hit all 5 of these drives, and that's why their products don't just feel like tools. They feel essential.
And when it's time to sell, please, please, please remember this distinction. Nobody cares about features. Nobody cares about a 1 gigabyte hard drive. What they care about is the benefit, 1,000 songs in their pocket. They aren't buying your product, they're buying a better version of themselves. So all of this probably makes sense, right? The framework is pretty clear. But then the fear kicks in. That little voice that says, but I'm not a marketing person, or, I'm just terrible with numbers. We get paralyzed because we think we have to be some kind of world-class expert at all 5 of these things. You know that famous 10,000-hour rule? That's about becoming a grandmaster chess player or a concert violinist. But for most business skills, you don't need to be a virtuoso. You just need to be good enough.
And here's the crazy part. Kaufman argues that getting from "I have no idea what I'm doing" to "Hey, I'm reasonably good at this" takes about 20 hours. So, how does that even work? Well, this is his simple method. The real secret is just pushing through what he calls the frustration barrier. You know that feeling, right? Those first few hours of learning anything new where you just feel totally incompetent and kind of dumb. By committing to just 20 hours, you give yourself permission to be bad at the beginning, which ironically is the only way to ever get good. And as you start learning and building, you have to remember this fundamental law. A modern car evolved from a simple cart with wheels. It didn't just appear out of nowhere, fully formed and perfect. You can't build a complex, perfect business on day one. In fact, it's pretty much impossible. So what does that mean for you? It means you have to start simple. Don't try to launch a global empire from your garage. Start by making one great product that solves one person's problem. Get that simple system working first. Prove that it works. And then, and only then, do you start to build on top of it. So let's wrap this up. Business isn't some mystical, complicated thing that's only for people with fancy degrees. At its core, it's just about finding a human need and meeting it. That's it. So start there. Look around you. What's one small friction, one little annoyance you see every day? Because the path to building something truly valuable, well, it isn't so complicated after all.